Do your thing, Brian. Get us started.
Oh, okay. So this is me now, huh?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
You're the host.
Okay. All right. Great. My first question to you, Larry, is just to get us started. I saw that you recently had a son. That's right? Correct?
That's correct.
Is this your first child?
It is. Indeed it is.
So what was so how has that changed things for you?
It's awesome. It's helps you focus a little bit more. What I mean by that is I have a shortened period of time to get things done with respect to business. And I think that's important and wonderful. And I also work from home, so it adds a little bit of awesomeness / complexity all rolled into one for obvious reasons that, I can hear him in the other room and I also want to be quiet because his wall is right here, and, that kind of thing. So it's awesome. It's been a wonderful experience, but it's definitely a different type of experience. I'm sure every father can probably understand.
And Larry, what you don't know is that Brian has 9 children. So he is our foremost expert in child rearing.
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
I do, yeah.
Good for you.
I relate to you much more because I have 2. And so I know exactly what you're going through. Brian is like on a whole nother level of parenting. So
yeah, maybe we should turn this around. I should be asking you questions. So how is it?
I can relate to the joys and struggles of running a business.
You just want to win. You can win
right.
that.
I can
argument.
win at this argument. Everything else, I don't know. So yeah, you can ask me about the last time I detailed a Maserati. It's I kind of lose at that one. When I first found out about you, I expected you to be like a lot older than you are, and so when I found out that you're essentially our age, that made me a little bit jealous. But I'm interested in like the path.
Look a lot older.
What's that? No.
He didn't watch it.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not like a supercar guy or anything. So Matt was the one who introduced me, and so with the ammo products and everything. So then when I finally looked you up, I was
these
like,
bags right here. that shows my age.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously you've had a pretty meteoric rise in this industry, and I'm interested in what that story is. So you started off in Wall Street. You started off doing the traditional, typical, kind of like financial thing. And so how did you make that transition? What was that like?
It's kind of a weird story. So, as you mentioned before, stop me if this goes too long, but I don't know if you want the long version or the short version.
We want the long version.
Matt loves long versions.
Version.
Everything
Okay,
I do is long and boring. So give it
good.
to me.
Well, then I am your man. So
You just woke up the baby
I came
there
out
with
of
that
a
clap.
very amazing high school called Bright Country Day, and this high school is just outside Manhattan. So a lot of the people who get their children to go there are they're CEOs and big to-do people. I lived up north, maybe an hour north, an hour and 20 minutes north of Manhattan. This school was maybe half an hour north. So I was, as far as I was concerned, I was a country folk type of person, even though I wasn't. But compared to Manhattan, I was. Meaning we had a lawn. And so I finally got into this school, and I got into the school because I was a very good athlete, in particular hockey. And it's a very wonderful hockey school. And so why am I telling you this? When I went there, you learn a lot of stuff and yada, yada, yada. And preparing for college, like high school is way harder for me than college. It prepares you amazing. So it was a wonderful school. But the atmosphere of the school itself is one of become very intelligent, get a corporate job, and make a lot of money. And so I think a lot of my values were put into the fire at that point and hardened and molded at that stage. And I look back and I kind of laugh on it or whatever. So I went to the University of Virginia, which is the number one public school in the country, or it goes back and forth with Stanford or whatever it is, but or UCLA or whatever it is. But it's a really good school. I met my wife there. I didn't get in for 3 tries. So what does that mean? I went in and I was at another college. And at the time, this is a whole long story, but at the time I was working for President Clinton, like the president. I got to travel around the world and do all these crazy things, but basically I was an assistant to an assistant. So I got to get his soda, which was Diet Pepsi, by the way. But he has a very particular amount of things that he wants or whatever, and he's president. He gets whatever he wants. And he was great to me. So I got to travel and do all these amazing things. In between, I was going to college, and I said, all right, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to I want to go to the University of Virginia. And the reason that happened was I was in DC working for the president, and we get some time OTR. We get off the records. We get time. I get to do whatever I want. And my buddies from high school were at the University of Virginia, so I traveled down in my suit and the whole 9 yards. And it took like a very long time to get there because there was an ice storm. I remember it like it was yesterday. I got out. I'm wearing a very nice suit, and I'm wearing my old military shoes, dress uniform, and I slipped and fell. I fell. I just fell right there. The instant I got on the grounds, and I'll never forget that. And I said, for some reason, right then, it just like when I saw my wife or the woman that would be my wife, I knew I wanted to go to school. So, long story short, I went to the University of Virginia, got a wonderful degree in economics. Here's the point. I came out, and it's kind of like a feeder system. It's like, okay, now you're all educated, and you're supposed to go do something important. So from there, we used a lot of contacts and friends and Bright Country Day, all these, what's the right word? Industry contacts, let's put it that way. Rubbing elbows with people. And I got to work on the New York Mercantile Exchange. At the time, New York Mercantile Exchange, Matt, you'll know, was an actual physical building where, remember where the circles were, and there's a dude in the middle, and you throw the cards in, you'd be like, 5 by 10, 5 by 10. And no. And you people yelling and screaming, the typical like Wall Street thing.
Yep. What everybody thinks of when they think of Wall Street, right?
That literally, if I say Wall Street, that's the thing you think of. That's where I was. It doesn't exist anymore. I'm sure you know.
Right.
Knows that. But, back then, I was the dude behind the dude screaming and yelling 5 by 2, 5 by 2, 5 by 2, whatever. I was the dude in the computer system double checking the trades. It was awesome / horrific. So I'd get there really early in the morning, and we'd create all these math algorithm things that were proprietary, very specific. You paid me $10 million. I couldn't remember what it was, but it was a little piece of paper that I made every morning, and I gave to the trader and 3 or 4 of his other minions that would trade other commodities, but not the big natural gas. I hated it. It was an amazing experience. I hated it. And I decided to leave a job where the joke was, I never forget this, it's like, if you're an idiot and you don't know what you're doing, you're making $500,000 to $1 million a year. Mm-hmm. I remember him saying that. And he's like, are you stupid? Just suck it up and do it. And I'm like, man, I did all this training, did all this schooling or whatever, and I was miserable, but I had a chance to make a lot of money. And the reason I wanted to make a lot of money, and there's a point to the story, is I wanted to have some cars. And I wanted to play with cars because that's, I don't know what it is. I can't put it into words. Matt, you probably better than I am at putting it into words. But there's just something about it. I like it. It's calming. Mm-hmm. It's just part of whatever. So I really like it. And so I thought to do that, you have to have lots of money. So I ended up leaving the job, and people are like, are you out of your freaking mind? You're set up forever if you do this. I mean, this guy was trading just off the record, he was trading up 2-3 million a day, and then he'd be down 100,000, then he'd be up 150,000, then down 2 million. You know what I mean? It was just like this massive fluctuation, like big money was crazy. Mm-hmm. So I left, and I said, I'm leaving, and I took a job for $2,000 a month, $2,000 a month in Manhattan. I lived in Manhattan, and my wife and I we weren't even married at that point, but she was staying on 120th, and I was staying on 122nd on the Upper West Side because she was getting her PhD at Columbia in chemistry, mm-hmm. which will come back and circle around in the story. Remember, you wanted the long stories.
Mm-hmm. Yep, keep going. I love it.
Okay, so I left. I worked for a car place called Cooper Classic Cars in Chelsea, which is a little bit, north of downtown, Wall Street kind of thing. So it's the middle of Manhattan for people who don't know Manhattan, on the west side. And basically what we did, so I left this really awesome high-paying job and took a $2,000 a month job, which I think my rent was like $1,800 at the point. That was ridiculous. And then I became the curator of this museum. It's kind of like the garbage man, use a receptacle, whatever. I was the curator of this museum, meaning I was the dude who cleaned the floors and prepared these amazing, ridiculous cars to drive around Manhattan and go to movies, auctions, photo shoots, and I would bring a car that was rented that we would locate or we had in-house. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people have paintings and they give it to a museum for a little bit and whatever. Same kind of idea in a shorter version with these cars. You would take these ridiculous cars, Ferraris, old Dinos. I'll never forget. My first supercar I ever got to drive was a Ferrari Dino in Manhattan. And the first person I picked up was Matt Farah. Because Matt Farah and I, he and I went to high school together. We were closest friends in the world.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh no, we've known each other since we were 7 years old.
Oh shoot.
Friends.
Okay, yeah, I thought you guys met through YouTube or something like that.
No, I'll tell you the story how how he helped me get into the dry clean shop. Matt is Matt's the man. But
Mm-hmm.
Matt and I are so different. You know,
Yeah, right.
whatever. I know him for so long, it's ridiculous. Hell, I lived at his house for like 2 years in the basement because I when I got out of the army, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, I worked there. I picked Matt up in the Dino, and he was working for what the hell was he doing? He was working for like an advertising company or something like that, creative advertising. And I drove around, and the whole thing, it was wonderful. It was great, and I met a lot of people. So the story goes this. This is where it sort of picks up. I went to, can't remember the name of the house, but I went to this guy who owned a mattress company. As soon as I think of it, like my mother and my in-laws, they go, like, "Oh my God, he was the biggest manufacturer of mattresses. It's a huge, big dude."
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I went to his property and I took a truck, and the truck was going to be used for a Ralph Lauren polo ad. And when you do any ads, you do, they're like 6 months ahead. So it's like the middle of the summer, right?
Right.
And people are wearing, winter jackets and stuff. And it's like weird because they're taking, you know what I mean? It's like 6 months ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I go there and my job was to make sure the models didn't scratch the paint. Pretty cool job. So I sit there in a chair, I clean it up. I sit there in a chair and I'd be like, "Excuse me, sir." No, like that's technically our property. So I had to like man up,
Protect it. Yeah.
Protect the car. Don't be shy. Like, "Sir, director person, the supermodel cannot like jump up and down on the hood of a $2 million car because I have to drive it home." That kind of thing.
Right.
I ended up through hook or by crook. I met all these like really cool like supermodel famous people. It was awesome. Didn't stink. But I met this other dude there who ended up being the best man at my wedding, and he was at the time he was probably 30 or 35 years older than me. He was one of my closest friends in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And as the story goes. The TV show, stay with me on this one. The TV show Seinfeld, the biggest television show on the planet, I'm sure you've heard of it. There is a character named Elaine.
Mm-hmm.
And Elaine's job was to write for this catalog called the J. Peterman catalog. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
You've heard that, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
J. Peterman catalog is a real thing. The guy's name is John Peterman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John Peterman and this gentleman, that'll remain nameless, my closest friend, started this company called the J. Peterman catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the writer. He was the one that actually made in the show the Himalayan walking shoe and the Watchman's cap and all this crazy stuff. He wrote those beautiful and eloquent and just full of life, these stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so fascinated with this guy. As a matter of fact, you can't see it in my room, but my wife makes me keep it in my office. I have a real, genuine J. Peterman catalog. The guy who wrote it, the actual catalog, who sketched all the things out, he has since passed away. And I was into that family, and they're very nice people. And I got gifted an actual J. Peterman catalog. I actually have a catalog. But,
like an original, like an. Okay.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And this is an original couch where they wrote the catalog. It means a lot to me. It's all mangled because it's so old.
Yeah,
it's like a couch. You know what I mean? Anyways, so I'm trying to get through the story. This guy was the nicest man in the world, the most creative person I've ever met. And if you read the back of my bottles, I'll kind of jump forward a little bit. The back of my bottles, there's a story on every one of them that talks about like driving and the hair of a woman tickling your face, like all these like, kind of goofy things, but that's the writer from the catalog. So we became really, really close friends. Like I said, years later, he was the best man at my wedding, which I was a young 20-something-year-old, and my best man was in his 60s.
Mm-hmm. So wait, he wrote the descriptions, or it's based
on... He
on...
wrote the stories. He was the real person who wrote the stories. The character Elaine was him.
Yeah.
There's a loose,
yeah.
tree.
Okay.
That did, but he was the real dude. Him and J. Peterman. There was another guy, and my friend.
It was everything modeled after him. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, he and I we just became the best of friends, and we decided to open up a car wash because I said, I can do this on my own. I'm a young 20-year-old. I can fight the world. I can start a car wash. And I don't have any money. I had $2,000 a month. Are you kidding me? And $1,800 of it goes to the rent guy. So I ended up taking out a loan, and he took a loan, and we went 50-50 into this car wash. And I'm sort of speeding up a little bit where I didn't want to work for Cooper Classics anymore because, I wanted to do my own thing. I'm an entrepreneur. And I lived in Rye Country Day. That's where I went to high school. Remember, it's coming around. So I said, the only place that I know really is Rye. in Harrison and all these other towns that are near there. So let me go, and I put a map. I don't have it. I just moved into this new house. I barely have anything here. But I used to have this map on the. Little things like this mean a lot to me. But I don't even know. It was so long ago, whenever it was in 2000 something. I remember back when you had MapQuest. Like, who the hell uses MapQuest now? But I took MapQuest and I printed out the screenshots and I taped them together like a psycho. And I put it was like a 10-mile radius of what I knew. And in that radius, I would put on the little map, little dots like Bobby's car wash, Matt's car wash, Upset's garage, what all my competitors, all the people that were doing stuff. Mind you, I wasn't even competing. I was 20 years old. I didn't have anything. So I went to each one of them and I sat there like a psycho. I just sat outside. I never forget it. I had and I still have the car. I don't drive it a lot, but a 95 Impala. Greatest thing since sliced bread, that car. 95. It's dropped to the ground. When I get out of it, people don't think that a tall, skinny, like, hey guys, get out of it. You think you're like, oh my God, what's scary dude's getting out.
Don't shoot me, right?
Yeah. So
don't rob me.
I would park on the side of the road, so these people would freak out because they think I was like staking them out. That's a whole other story. So I'd watch them and see how many people they were doing, whatever. So this one day I went to this place in Harrison. God, what the hell was the name of it? The name of the owner was Benny. Wow, so many years ago. I can't remember what the name of his shop was.
So you're in your, mid-20s at this point?
I am, I'm like 25, 26.
Yeah,
24, 25, something like that. So I go to the shop, I talk to him, I'm pretending to be a customer. Hey, let me get a car wash or whatever, the whole thing. And I left. And I went and I watched him, and then I came back in again. And he's like, okay, whatever. A couple of days later. Mind you, I'm driving out of the city for this after work. And then I went to him one day and I was like, you ever think about selling your business? He's like, yeah, I think about it every day. I was like, oh, geez. Thinking back of it, I was very ignorant, but that's what young people are, I guess. But so eventually I struck a deal with him and I said, hey, I want to buy the play. And I had him hold a note because I didn't have any money. So I put half down. He held a note. He owned the building. So I was renting from him and I had a note at the same time. For people listening, that's when you don't have any money. This is just a clever way of, maybe not anymore, of getting somebody else to hold the leverage so that you can. Anyways, I took over the shop. I ran it for 5 years. And one of the things that I do when I go to these like detailing seminars or whatever, one of the seminars is, I forget the title of it. I'm losing my mind. I think it's because it's lack of sleep, but this baby, I'm sure you know.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. The one of the seminars I give, I forget the fancy title, but it's basically get rid of all your customers and be more profitable. Something like that. It's not right. Like fire your customer and you'll be more profitable. So essentially what I did in terms of business is this particular guy had, let's call it, I think it was like 460 something customers. So let's call it 500 customers, active regular customers. It was a car wash, meaning not a machine. Like you pull in, a bunch of guys jump on it, whatever. And then there was a detail center. It was a 3 bays. And we're talking small place here. So 500 customers, I came in and the first thing I did was I basically looked at all his customer lists, looked at what he's charging. I raised the price by like 17 or 22%, something like 20%. Not just like, I'm going to raise the price 20%. I just knew that my income statement, my P&L, I knew what my numbers were, probably not as good as I should have. And I knew what I was paying for rent. Remember, this guy wasn't paying rent. He owned the building. So he could take whatever, $10 for a wash. I don't care.
Extra cash,
Yeah, he didn't care. So I had to make a certain thing. So by doing that, I kind of, let's call it, for argument's sake, I cut it in half. So 250 clients now, right? Now I have 250 clients that are very profitable. Then I said, okay, how do we take the ones that are like super, I'll use the right words. The wrong word would be annoying. So we'll go with that one. Super crazy customers that I don't want to.
High maintenance, right.
High maintenance. I don't want to like deal with this thing. So I cut it all down. And essentially I showed the progression of what my thought process was to change, to move these people. What did that do for me? What that did for me was it funneled a lot of supercars by default. That wasn't my intention. My intention was to be profitable and to not have a job kind of thing. That whole, I don't want a job, I want a career, And by doing that, I just like funneled a ton of supercars. So every day I had supercars in the driveway. And you're like, well, Larry, that's awesome. Good for you. So I was making a little bit more money. But what the fascinating thing that happened were these guys and all their fancy cars would line up on the front of my place. It made us look like rock stars. I mean, you couldn't fit another Lamborghini in the place or Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could walk on the cloud. It was wonderful. And I said to myself one day, "Holy crap! You can't even get in my place." And it's not like you can't get in my. No, you physically couldn't get. It was blocking the doors.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, guys, get the hell out of here. I love you, but get out of here. I said, I love looking at the same Ferrari, but you can't get in the door. So then one day I remember I was driving home on the Hutch River, the Hutch, it's a famous road going to Manhattan. So I was driving on the West Side Highway basically. And I thought to myself, why don't I just create a thing where, and this gets back to the Matt Farah story. Why don't I create a company that not only does like the car washing and stuff, but people pay me to come hang out and give them an excuse to drive their car. And I'm like, that'll be awesome, but that's pretty ridiculous. That's the dumbest idea ever. Never mind. And then I was like, screw this. What the hell do I care? I can't have them there anyways. They're blocking the business. So I came up with this company called the New York Motor Club. And it became like wildly popular and the first of its kind, meaning a car club where we went driving. Now there's 5,000 of them everywhere. Mm-hmm. But we were the first like big to do. And then what I would do, I think it was like 700 at this, and it was like $700 or $1,000 a year for dude with a bunch of like obviously.
Yeah, they're just pulling out of their pockets or out of their seat cushions, right?
Right. So totally not a big deal. And what they would do is we would pay the money to become a member of this exclusive club or whatever. Such a ballsy 20-year-old. And we would put on like 10 or 12 things a year, events, go to the track. That's one of the big track. I love going to the track. Or drive up to go get wine or, all that kind of corny stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the bottom line. It was an excuse to drive their car. That's really what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so this like kind of ingraining of this driving of your car. And again, this will all come circle around in 20 minutes, whenever I finish blabbering about ammo.
It's all great. So
driving the car. It just burned in my memory. And it meant a lot to me. And it's like almost more than the detailing, which is like, oh my God, the detailer said that. No, like the detailing is like this bond between you and the car, and it's corny. I can almost feel everybody who's not a car guy rolling their eyes right now. But this weird bond, and then driving the hell out of it, that's like, it's freaking awesome. So we started the club. Here's the Matt Farah. Now, Matt was working for this place called Gotham Dream Cars, where they rent out dream cars. They rent out Lamborghinis and Ferraris. It's very, give me $500 a day and you can go drive a Lamborghini, whatever it is. So he was the dude delivering those cars. And he's like, it's not working. And he left the advertising company. And I said, hey, why don't we do this? Like, Matt was much more in high school. In high school, I was voted, just to give you a perspective. So I was voted most likely to be a billionaire. And he was voted...
like life of the party or something.
Yeah. Like life of the party, make the most friends or whatever. Matt was just an outgoing dude.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what you see on camera, by the way, is exactly how he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he just like talks like that. So he's so gifted. It makes me ill, but that's a whole other story. So I said, hey, dude, come work for me. I have 2 nickels to rub together. Let's see if we can make it work. Now, mind you, I'm 20 years old. Obviously, we've since split, but amicably or whatever, because he wanted to go do his own thing. So anyways, he comes over and we build the New York Motor Club, and we're getting clients and we're getting customers and we're getting so much recognition. And there's videos. Matter of fact, I'll send you a video. Maybe you can post up. It's old school. It's like 6 or 7 years old. You can see how young I am. I'm like sitting in front of the car wash saying, today's our first run. And we're really excited. I have $0. I rented a helicopter just to film it. I'm 20 years old. I mean, it was like all the cash I'd ever made. So I'll send you the videos. It's ridiculous. So Matt and I are, we're trying to make it was like a TV show kind of thing. Like I'm the old man, even though I'm young, and I'm yelling at Matt. Matt's late, and I'm like, God damn it, Matt, where are you? We have a thing to run, and it's raining. The helicopter's not going to land. It was pretty interesting. Fast forward, 5 years go by, and Matt is becoming his own thing. I mean, he's a tornado. I mean, he's a beast. He's doing really well because he can talk to the camera. Now, back at that time, there's actually a video that runs around. Matt and I laugh every time, where we got interviewed for this TV show. It's called Fuse TV, a very small TV show about the New York Motor Club. And I couldn't develop words out of my mouth. I was terrified. And we have that video of Matt buries me every time. He's like, dude, how are you even on camera right now? How are you on camera right now and having a conversation? Because I couldn't say anything. And so it's like the most embarrassing moment of my life. with all his TV cameras. So the point of the story is he became very successful and amazing. He decided he wanted to go to LA. I said, okay, cool. Totally understand. He wasn't like the detailing type guy anyways. He was the marketing for that corner club. I'm going to stick it out here. And so put that story to the side. So Matt goes out and becomes very, very famous with the Drive channel. So come back to this. So now Matt's gone. And here's for your detailers. So somebody came in one day to the shop. And when they come into the shop, they say, hey, I want you to buy 55-gallon drums of blah, 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 whatever. Like, no, Matt, we're talking big stuff, not 16 ounces. I don't even have a bottle next to me, but big stuff. And he says, you know, at this point, I was becoming a very popular detailer, especially in New York with these videos and exotic cars. This is before detailing was, I don't want to say before detailing was whatever, but like YouTube now, like there was no YouTube detailer guy.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So I'm becoming very well known. So this guy comes in, tries to sell me a product. And I said, I have no idea how to use your product. And he says, you're like Mr. Detailer. And I said, I don't know what your product is. I said, here's a machine this is before, Matt, this is before DAs. So this is a rotary. This is like old school razor blade.
Wool pads and
Wool pads, the whole thing.
Yep.
So I said, here, take it. And he takes the machine back in the day when the machines are like 800 pounds. And I said, here's your compound, whatever it was. And I said, here's my, remember that guy that I was telling you about, my best man? He about my partner. I said, go over there and use this car. It was a silver Mercedes. I'll never forget it, wagon, because he had a bunch of kids. Has a bunch of kids. And I said, go over there and test it on that thing. I have videos of it to this day. We break each other's balls. So the guy takes the machine, goes, goes right through the paint. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, how are you possibly selling a product if you have no idea how to use it? Get out of here. You know, I was pumped. And a couple weeks later, whatever, the CEO of the company calls and says, oh, hey, would you do some consulting? And I'm like, will I do some consulting? I was like, yeah, man. You crazy? Look at me. Of course I do consulting. It sounded really cool. I had no idea. I was like, yeah. And I look, I'm like, what's consulting? So I'm like, sure. And he's like, I'll give you some free product. Looking back at it, I'm like, okay, Larry. Like now, you know, I'm a little more sophisticated, hopefully. I wouldn't have taken a couple of gallons of product. So anyway, the guy says, we're gonna make some stuff. You make sure that it works. And so I would say, oh, that you know, it's too liquidy. And so that's when I learned like viscosity and density. And I started learning like the words because they're like, what the hell are you talking about? Use language. And I'm like, viscosity. Oh yeah. So I got into that world. Mind you, my wife is getting her PhD from Columbia in inorganic chemistry. So I have background in my father.
You can bounce things off of her and she can school you.
Right. And my father was a chemist for General Foods and made Pop Rocks, you know, the stuff you put in your mouth. Anyways, so we had chemistry in the family. I didn't know my butt from a hole in the ground at that point. So I'm working for these guys and owning the shop. Now, in conjunction, the third story is at the same time, I started weeding. Remember the story I said where I'm weeding out the customers in a polite way? I got to a point where I figured out the overhead of my business was so much greater than my truck. At that time, I had a mobile truck. I was like, why don't I just go to these guys' houses? And I kept going. They're like, you know what? We'll pay you more because
they don't have to bring it, right?
I don't have time. They're like you, or you know, like I got you're making money. I'm busy. Like I got a light. Like just come clean my cars. I want to go for a drive. I was like, interesting. So I built this truck. The truck became very successful. Ended up making, you know, more profit, less gross, but more profit. I gotta stop doing that. More profit, and I decided, all right, let me focus on that. So I ended up selling the business, and now at the same time, I'm still doing that consulting. Now, as the consulting is going on, I became really obsessive with understanding the process so I could speak the language better, as opposed to, it's not slippy enough. The chemist guy and the actual chemist would be like, what the hell are you talking about? So I would sit next to him, and long story short, it's actually like baking a cake. And it is complicated to some degree, but it's baking a cake. And so for 2 years, I did this whilst still detailing mobily. You follow me? See the progression of where we're going?
Yep.
Less clients. I probably had 25, 30 clients at that point. Hustling, freezing my hands off. That's why in this video, which by the way, I finished the video. As soon as we're done, I'm going to finish the edit. It's going to go up tomorrow.
Cool.
The whole Mac thing in there. So long story short, this chemist retired. And so the CEO went, like, what am I going to do?
Right.
And I was like, I don't know. I'll make it. And he's like, fine, fine. There's a bullet hole. Put the bandage on it, bandage, and we'll figure it out.
Mhm.
Well, we never took the band-aid off. So I became the chemist. I did it again. The chemist. And so I started making like thousands of gallons of product. So that's when people say like, oh, is he just like putting his name on something? And I go like,
Right.
It does hurt a little bit, but I understand. I totally get it. But no, the answer
I
is
get
no.
that. I get that question from people probably 4 or 5 times a day because, and I actually thought that myself. I'm like, there's no way that this guy, you know, I love his channel and I love his delivery and brand. And I love all the bottles look, but there's just no way you're making a better detail spray than the detail spray companies. But
Right.
I didn't. As soon as I heard the sort of my wife's a chemist, I'm like instantly clicked, and I knew it.
Yeah, it's just to be, because my big thing is about doing fair, ethical business and being fair and all that kind of stuff. I don't sit there in a lab anymore.
Certainly not. Right.
Like Ralph Lauren, I love to use this analogy as if we're the same statue. But Ralph Lauren doesn't make ties anymore. He did,
right,
but he doesn't. He's got other people doing it. So in all
certainly,
honesty,
no one expects you to do that. It's just they're thinking you're going. You know, there's these OEM manufacturers. You go to Sonax and you just put your your label on it and call it your own, and it's really like a third tier product that's 4 levels below Sonax Perfect Finish because you just wanted to put your own name on it.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally understand and appreciate people doing that and thinking that. Having said that,
you're not doing it right.
Yeah, I was going to show you. I put them away conveniently. I have stacks of books. When you do it's very interesting. I loved this part of my life. And I still love this part now too, but that part was a lot of fun. Huge factory. I got to use forklifts and the whole thing and raw materials, and you have to be very organized, and it's literally baking a cake. And whenever you make something, like I made spray wax and soaps and my very special tire shine, which we can talk about in a minute, thousands of times, literally, because you'd make multiple batches. And the batches were anywhere from minimum like 55 gallons up to 652. Like, so big.
Those big stainless steel tub things.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'd make that. And the interesting thing is, and the reason why I have all those books or whatever back there is when you make a formula, even if you made it 1,000 times, you have to document the temperature outside, what time it is now. You have to go through this whole checklist of things, because if something goes haywire, you have to then go back to that batch number and say, guess what? By the way, it's snowing outside. So is it snowing outside or is it 90 degrees?
Right.
Because that may have changed it. So anyways, I have stacks of all the ones where I can go back on June 7th, 2000 and whatever, I made 5,000 gallons of blah, 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 blah. So it's pretty interesting. So that's the stuff that I have. And when I show people in real life, you can actually see like my fingerprints, because like there's crap on your hands from. So it means a lot to me. So anyways,
so let me get this straight. So you have your mobile detailing business, and you're working for this chemical company, or?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. I won't get too deep into it, but I was under the impression that I owned stuff in that company, and all this rigmarole went down. It didn't work out.
I get it. Yeah.
Because basically, if I just went like, peace, I'm out, like, it would have crashed. So anyways, I was just an ignorant young person, but I learned a lot, and I'm very grateful for that experience.
So you're what? You're what? Late 20s now?
I'm still, I don't even. What the hell was I? Yeah, maybe like 27, 28, 28, something like that.
Right.
Maybe I can fact check that because I don't remember what I did yesterday. But so I'm making a lot of product, and then I came up with this idea, and I said, "Hey, boss man person, I detail," and at the time, I still have it. It was a very big deal for me, and it still is. I have a car in my fleet that I do a regular client. That's $40 million. Very, very rare. Just a wonderful piece of automotive history. And I need to work on this car. And I know what's in these products that I'm using. I don't I know, because my blood is literally in there sometimes.
Right.
Literally. So I say to the CEO, I'm like, listen, well, I'll give you an example, then I'll ask you the question. So to make 652 gallons, sorry, I'm doing old math in my head, 652 gallons, it would be 6 bags of 80 pounds each of NaCl. Do you know what NaCl is?
Something chloride. Sodium chloride.
McDonald's loves it on their fries. Salt. It's table salt.
Right.
Just basic table salt. So you take 80 pounds, 6 bags, 80 pounds each. Now, the tub that you were talking about was probably, maybe this high.
Mhm.
And inside, there was a thing, like a big washing machine.
Mhm.
So you mix all these products in, and I take the forklift and dump it in, and take the forklift and dump it in, and then I mix and mix and mix, and it's basically the viscosity of a little bit thicker than like milk.
Mhm.
So it's not spray wax, but it's not syrup.
Mhm.
And so what we would do at that point is I would pick up 80-pound bags. And you take a razor blade. Remember, like it was yesterday. Lean over the edge, cut the razor blade, lift pull the bag back, and lean over, and you pour all the salt in there.
Mhm.
Why would you think that you'd put salt into car soap? What would it do to the?
Well,
What
you're
do you
going to
think it
adjust
does?
the viscosity, right? I mean, you're going
Right.
to make
Why
it
do you
either thicker or
adjust-
thinner.
You would make it thicker.
Right.
Now, why would you make it thicker?
If you wanted to turn it from spray to some sort of, you put it on a sponge. Is that where you're going?
There's two reasons, but you were very close. The first reason is perceptions of a thicker product equal a better product,
Mhm.
which I can tell you right now, and I'm looking you dead in the camera, that is not true.
Mhm.
It's just not true. But it does make people feel better.
Mhm.
The second thing is, and pardon the expression, and I use this purposely loosely because I don't condone any of this stuff, but it's like drugs. You make a thicker product so that you can cut it. And then when you cut it, you make more profit on the things that you can sell out.
Sure.
You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we did that. And so one day I remember I sat in the office, and I remember this like it was yesterday because him and I, he like sometimes haunts my dreams. I throw a dart at him. Anyways, I think about it and I sit down there and I say, okay, I know that I'm the detailing guru expert, and now I'm your chemist and your only chemist.
Mhm.
So I'm going to pose a question to you. And Matt, you're going to be him. And I said, Matt, in winter, because it's actually snowing outside, in winter, driving around, your car gets dirty, right? Right.
Correct.
What am I washing off my car in winter, typically?
Salt and cinders. Yeah.
Right. I said, now I want you to do some very, very difficult math for me, Matt. When I pour almost 200 pounds of salt into a product called soap, and you use that soap to wash off salt, do you see a problem with that? That's basically what I said to him. And he's like, yeah, but we make a lot of money on it. I was like, okay, fair enough. So I appreciate what he was doing and blah, blah, blah. So I said to him, do you care if I make a couple of gallons of my own stuff? And he looked at me like, go away. I don't like it's a rounding error. I don't really care.
Right.
I said, cool. I want to make like the best stuff. And so one day, so I made really great soap with no salt in it and da da da.
Mhm.
And one day I wanted to make, these are part of my failures. I wanted to make like the most ridiculously expensive tire shine. And tire shine's based on, back in the day, remember oil commodities and gas commodities, it was based on commodity price of this oil. And so you would get pure oil and then you'd have to emulsify. You have to put all these things in it so that the oil would stick.
Mhm.
And way back when there was carcinogenics, hexane, where you could put on a tire and it would stay shiny forever.
Mhm.
It would instantly dry. That volatility,
Mhm.
fancy word, that volatility would come off the tire and you get it in, you smell it, and it's a carcinogenic. You can't use it anymore.
Mhm.
So this was back at the point where it's like, ooh, water-based dressings. So a water-based dressing, if you take a oil and you take water and you put them together, they don't like each other. Very
Right,
basic, right?
right.
This whole salt thing. So I had to figure out a way to get them to work together.
Mhm.
So I spent a long time doing that. But part of the first, like, you know what? He doesn't care about like the products, then I'm going to make like the best products for me. Like, F that guy.
Mhm.
So I took pure oil. I took pure refined oil, and I'm like, I'm gonna have the most expensive tires on the planet.
Mhm.
So I pick this thing up. It's oil, bro. So there's oil that drips out and it gets slippery. So the forklift, you go like this, and the the barrel is this way, and there's a spigot that points
Mhm.
down.
Yep.
So I pick it up, and if you take your forklift, I'll try to put it here, and if you just tilt it down a little bit, it's like ice, and it goes.
Right.
So the thing slid off, fell on its nose, broke the nose, and oil is going boom, boom, boom. It's coming out of the 55-gallon like that. And I'm like, oh, like freaking out because one, it's really expensive and
Right.
it's going all over this floor. So what do? I sprint over to the thing. I sprint over.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can guess what happens.
Yeah,
I
you're-
wipe out.
Mhm.
I wipe out. I land in the oil, hit my head, out cold. I'm now laying in a puddle of actual real, like from the earth, ground, whatever, oil. And so I'm out. I work by myself, and the dude is in the office on the other side of the building. So my mom was visiting that day. Why he's bringing me lunch? I have no idea. Because we have like security codes or whatever. Ding, 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 they can't get in. The CEO buzzes her down like, "Yeah, Larry, what the fuck?" I'm like, "What are you doing? Open the door." And she comes in. She's like, "Ah!" I'm like sitting there passed out in a thing of oil. It was the greatest moment. So, anyways, I progressed, and I ended up making a very specific thing I now call mud. Where you take oil and you put it together with water and make a water base, which is very safe. Now, when you do that, you get this sling. Everybody talks about sling. We all know about sling. Yep. The way that I made it, it really reduced that sling. And I was willing to take that much sling to avoid this much percentage of maybe potentially getting cancer. I mean, I love my car. So, like, I don't really, you get where I'm going? Like, so there might be a little bit of sling, but there really isn't. So I figured it out, and it's I don't want to give away totally my secrets, but basically it was something that didn't occur to me until like I just made a mistake. And I put, there's a lot of warm water. I have to put warm water at a certain temperature beforehand before I mix the products and then put all this other stuff in. And if you mess one of those up, it totally throws the whole thing off.
Yeah, changes the solid.
Changes the whole thing.
Right.
I'm talking like a degree. So I was like, oh my God. And I love this stuff. So long story short again.
Suck it if you think Larry doesn't make his own crap.
That's the point of this.
I'll say
I don't make it anymore, but
right. But you
know what I mean.
I don't make my freaking t-shirts either.
Exactly. But I'm not just like, hey, I want to start a company and put my name on it. Right. So I had no intention. For the record, I had no intention of doing this. This was a product for my business. Mind you, I was still a smaller-minded, and I mean that in a very polite way, detailer. And I thought it would be freaking awesome. Matt, how cool would it be? Like, you're wearing your Obsessed Garage. It makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Sure.
I had ammo, and I'm like, I'll put it in a bottle. And I wrote ammo on the side.
Right.
And so I made this ridiculous stuff that was all exactly the way that I wanted. And like, F you, I'm not putting salt in mine. Like all these crazy things. And people are like, oh, this guy's wacko. So I detail a car, and I'd have those bottles next to me. And it was like, I was like, those are my bottles.
So you had what did you write it with a magic marker? Or did you go get labels printed? Or how did you... In the beginning,
in one of the videos, the very first video I did, a buddy of mine did, who made all these super crazy commercials. He was a customer of mine, the New York Motor Club customer. He was like a really wealthy dude that wanted to drive his R8. I have a video of me driving cross country in an R8. His R8. Right. Anyways, he was a computer. He made TV commercials, like big, like Super Bowl, like. So anyways, he's like, yeah, dude, I'll make one for you in 2 minutes. I'll put up, whatever. I was like, oh, sweet. So I got a label and I put it on there, and I still have it somewhere. It's decrepit at this point.
That's awesome.
And I thought it was great. I thought it was cool. And then the way it worked was, hey, dude, like, what are you doing? What is that product? I was like, oh, it's a product that I make. And they're like, sure, you make it. And I was like, I didn't really care because I wasn't selling it. It's slowly sold. Okay, put that on hold. Go to the next conversation with Matt. Now, Matt's out there being famous. He's really good. He's on a show called The Drive Channel. You with me?
Yep.
So I go, Matt, dude, like, what's the deal? I got to get on the show. He's like, Larry, let me put this to you nicely. You absolutely suck on camera.
So you haven't YouTubed yet, right? So this is prior to any of that. Okay.
Nope.
Yep.
And so I go to him and I'm like, dude, we've known each other for like, at that point, 15 years. Now I've known him for, I don't even know, 25, 30 years. And he's like, all right, dude, I'll put you in front of JF. JF was the producer of the show back when. And now the show's been sold. The channel's been sold. And I go to him and we sat downtown at a Starbucks. And he said, listen, I'm happy to chat with you. I know we're part of the same group. Mike Spinelli, Mike Musto, Big Muscle on Drive, is one of my best friends in the whole wide world. Matt Farrell. You were all just friends who did put the, So he's like, listen, you're in the family. I'll happily chat with you. I explained the situation. I said, I'm going to do a show on detailing. He's like, yeah, that sucks. That's like the most horrible idea for a show. And I said, okay, listen. I'm not very good on camera. And the content may not be what you want. And he's like, you're not sweetening the pot at all. And then I said, but I will pay for the first 3 episodes. And he's like, okay. And so I contacted some friends, like guy that shot the commercial for me, the whole thing. And I was like, listen, you got to hook it up. And I like scrounged together all the money.
You got to raise some capital. Right.
And I didn't raise capital. I took some of my own. But it was like basically all my friends are like help him. He's really annoying. We love him, but just like help him out. I was a kid. And I shot the 3 episodes. And I said, if the 3 episodes do well, meaning they get over 100,000 views, you are now committed for me finishing season 1. And
so this is when you were branded Drive, the yellow Drive, and then like I remember watching one of the videos with like spot correction with the back of a pencil eraser and stuff like that. I think that was season 2 or something like that.
That was season 2, yeah. My first episode was, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Was on the R8. It was how to wash your car. That was the car. I drove that in Bull Run. That was the guy. So I shot the video and it went like crazy. Like people went nuts. They were like, "This is insane. This is awesome." And
I still get people sending me those videos saying, "Hey, you got to see this." I'm like I haven't seen it. I mean, everybody's seen this. I mean, come on.
So they were flabbergasted. At the end of so I ended up getting my full season. At the end of the season, the interesting thing is, mind you, I'm nothing. Like we had Chris Harris, who's now Top Gear, whatever. Matt Farah, Spinelli, Mike Musto, Leo Parente, blah, blah, blah. I was like bottom of the rung. The dude gets his bloody knuckle guy. I'm always the bloody knuckle guy because I'm working. So at the end of the year, back then, there was a thing very important with YouTube. And YouTube is called, there's views and there's retention. And so you'd be judged on how many views you got. No, I didn't get the most views. I'm not Matt Farah. I'm not doing a burnout sideways and all these crazy things. I don't know how to do it. And that gets a lot of traffic. But then there's another thing called retention. And retention is how long, like people listening to this podcast, did they pass out because this is so boring, or are they still listening? Or have you retained them? And so at the end of the year, we sat at this big meeting, and I'm sitting at the meeting, and I'm like, I don't even know what's going on right now. I was like, well, I'm friends with Matt, but there's like that other guy that I've never like seen his show, and like people are yelling at each other, and I'm just a dork. I'm like, fine. And we put the stats up. And okay, for the most views this year, and it was like Christmas party, so, Matt Farah, and most of this, most of that. And the number one thing that YouTube values is retention. And you know who has that? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm batting 0 for like 11 right now, so this is fine. It was Drive Clean. And everyone was like, they like turned back and looked at me in the back of the room, like, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you. And they found out that people were watching the whole video and going back and they're like, what did he say right there? And they're going, and they're going back. And so that means I got to see the ad again, which is obviously ad rev is important. So I became less of a poop on. I wasn't the big shot, but I certainly wasn't like
less clients, more profitable. Right.
Yeah. So I wasn't just like the poop on guy on the channel. It was great. So then I got more and more shows, and that's when Autoblog started coming after me and some other channels. And then it's like, why don't I just do this every day for me? It won't be the same production value. I won't have 50 people staring at me and makeup, things and all the whole thing. But my show took off. The one, now called Drive and Protect. So that's how the progression went. And then so if you see, remember we have the 3 stories. The story over here where the Drive Clean and Matt Farah, he hooked me out the whole thing. And then at the same time, remember these are all in conjunction. At the same time, I was still detailing, and I still had these products. And so when I shot the video, and then people went to my website, I mean, it wonderfully. I'll choose my words. It progressed wonderfully from there, and now we're in 63 countries, and we're growing. And I think we're growing for a very important reason. That it's just people want the real truth. And half the time, I tell people, "Hey, my product isn't right for this particular application. Do you have a polish?" And I said, "Yeah, I created a polish. As a matter of fact, I was just playing with it today." And I cannot for the life of me get it to work the way that I want to. And I can't get it to work as good as M205, which is McGuire. It's a $6 billion company owned by 3M. Why the hell would I promote for them? And I was like, I'm not promoting them. Not one person, not Matt, not Obsessed Garage, not McGuire's, not Rupes, not anybody else pays me. And if they offered me, I probably wouldn't work with them. I don't want anything to do with their money. And I know it's like, oh, I'm honest. So no, because it's going to ruin the thing that I think is most valuable, which is the integrity I have with people. And so I said, I'm taking my product down, and I ate a ton of polish because it just pissed me off. I was like, God, I was so close. I just couldn't get that last 2%. And people emailed me and said, you're crazy. I'll still buy it. And I said, I just can't. I just can't. I'm insane. It was like 9,000 and something I ate, which was a big deal. It still is a big deal. So I think people resonate with that sort of honesty and, whatever. I make mistakes and fine. But Yeah.
So you aren't interested, or you don't take, because you're massively sponsorable, right?
Oh my gosh. Like Rupez, people go, oh, how much does Rupez pay you? I said, $0. One, they've never offered, but two, I wouldn't accept it if they did.
Why
messed
not?
up my whole thing.
Why not?
Would you trust me then? And I have flexibility. You know what's more important right now in the whole thing about mercantile exchange is my flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
I can come and go as I please. I'm the boss. I don't have to listen to anybody, and it's not like, oh, I'm the boss. It's that I am not beholden to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
What if you paid me money? I'm not going to. What if I decide that Rupez is junk? It's not. It's wonderful, and I think Flex is great. It's a wonderful tool. I just happen to prefer the Rupez for multiple reasons we can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But the Flex isn't a bad tool.
Right.
I'm not a fan of like pooping on somebody. Like people get all crazy. Like, you know, they look at me like you mentioned Adam's Polish. I think Adam's is a wonderful person. I actually met with him before I started the company and asked his advice, and he was nice enough to tell me. I don't have any beef with him. McGuire's, they could go like this and blow a snot rocket and knock me off the side of the world. They're McGuire's. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I don't know. I just don't think there's any room. Like there's a what they say, a chair for every ass.
I don't know, man. I just think of now. Maybe I'm a bit more discerning than the average dude because I am proverbially obsessed. But if you said, look, you tell that story and cash the Rupes check, but you're using it because it's the best. Maybe I'm projecting my own sort of thoughts on you, and because part of my vision for Obsessed Garage was to be sort of sponsorable and be sort of a brand representative, because I don't really want to create my own products. I don't have that vision. Anyway, so
listen, there's money in it, and I don't want to discourage you. And there's money in it, and there's value and honor and respectability and all that kind of stuff. But for me personally, and this isn't a value.
Well, I get it. I mean, I'm sort of been torn on that as well. Like someone sends me something and then they're like, well, what about this or that? Or can you do this? And I'm like, no, that's not the vision I had for, using your product. I'm using it because I would have bought it anyway. And when you send me it, I'm going to use it. But I'm not going to use it exclusively.
Well, of course. This sounds ridiculously corny, and I'm going to say it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
The freedom that you get from not accepting that money is so much more valuable than taking the money.
Yeah. Because
I can turn like that. And the fun part is I'm really tight with McGuire's. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I'm doing a podcast with him. I've seen him. We got to talk about that too. You got to come on the podcast. Anyways, I said, what the funny part is about your McGuire's 205? This is with like the head people at McGuire's that will name unnamed McGuire's. Mm-hmm. And I said, the instant my polish is better than M205, I'm going to crush you. And they start laughing. I can't figure it out yet. I said, you guys are still the greatest. I think it's wonderful, but the instant it is, I'm going to tell the world. They're like, all right. And before I took down my product, this is very important. Before I took down my product, because I had a thing called jeweler's polish, I called McGuire's and I said, hey, I'm taking down my product. And out of respect for you, you don't need to do anything. I don't want any payment. I'm just being respectful because I think open lines of communication is like more important than water at this point. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm going to be promoting your product until I can create a better one. Mm-hmm. And they just went like, sure, great, awesome, thanks. I really appreciate you calling that. And they're like, we really value it. Thank you. And that was it. I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted to be respectful.
So why M105, M205? Aren't they a little old school? Aren't they a little antiquated? Haven't other companies passed them up? I know Kevin Brown is sort of the disciple of, or the leader of all of us. Why? What's I don't have as much question. I detail my own cars on the weekend. I don't use 205. I don't know. Maybe I'm not using it correctly, but maybe I get lured by some of the other sort of shinier stuff. But tell me, what's your
I'll first say this. There's a lot of wonderful products out there, and I haven't tested all of them, so I can't speak of those. But the ones that I know work, the true workhorses are, like I said, 105 and 205. And then there's a little branch. Think of it like a pyramid. There's just a little branch underneath it. Sometimes they don't work. Certainly. 1 in 1,000, they don't. Right. It's very rare nowadays that they don't, because I can manipulate the product itself. So you want a foundation. Yep. By foundation is you can't. Oh, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use that guy's product. I'm going to use this guy's product. And it's like you haven't done the 10,000 hours in that one product yet. So once you've done the 10, tipping point, the 10,000 hours. So 105 and 205 are the foundation, and then from there I can manipulate their formula. I can add more water. I can use less product. I can use more air. From there, it kind of minimizes. But if you add another variable in,
Right.
you can't figure out like this one worked, but that one didn't work. I use this pad. So if I stick to the same type of pads and the same type of product liquids, I have less to choose from.
Yep, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
very well. I assumed that was the answer, but I needed to ask it.
Well, there you go.
That makes perfect sense.
And I'm not taking credit for that, and I don't want credit for that. That's Kevin Brown.
Sure.
I will say again, as I say in all my videos,
Sure.
1, because he's a friend. 2, because he's a gentleman and an actual decent human being.
Right.
He is by far the best detailer on the planet. End of story. Next question. Game over. He's that good. He's ridiculous. I couldn't hold a candle to him. Nobody can. He's that. Watch him.
Yep.
If the guy did weekly trainings, like in person, I think he could charge $10,000. I mean, you learn anyways. This isn't he's just the man, and I learned a lot from him. So I want to make sure that I'm taking zero credit for that sort of thing. Anyways, next question.
Why not more videos? I'm sure you get that often. Your production value is fantastic. Why not more? Why don't you follow the YouTube formula? Clickbait, more videos more often, and making them sort of following a certain formula.
Well, I will say this: it is a good idea to follow a certain formula to some degree, and I do need to get better at that because you build a bigger audience if they're expecting it, like a TV show. Having said that, I think I get around it because people understand that I am an actual detailer. Like I'm detailing cars. So
Right.
I don't have the time. And half the videos I shoot, I can't even film.
Right.
Let me back up. Half the jobs I do, I cannot film.
Right.
So I can't shoot every video. I can't shoot every car and every interesting thing. There's so many times I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could shoot this. And the guy looks at me like, you shoot this, I shoot you. You know what I mean? Like, you're not filming like 50 of my cars.
Right.
So I think people understand that. I hope they understand that my job isn't to shoot videos. I do it because I really enjoy it. Like, in fact, this video where you're in, as soon as we hang up the phone or Skype or whatever this is, I'm going to finish my edit. And I spent like an exorbitant amount of time. Sometimes it takes me like a day to shoot and a day to edit.
Certainly.
Easy breezy. And if it's all monologue, I don't have to do voiceover. This one is voiceover. I did 2 months of editing because it's 2 months of all the crap that's getting into the thing, and was finished yesterday, and I finished shooting this morning. So why I'm telling you that is it's a labor of love. I actually really enjoy. It's therapeutic. Same like detailing a car. I don't want to look at spreadsheets all day long. I don't like. It's just like ugh.
Right.
I'd rather be detailing a car, but I can't do it every day. So the videos get out there. So, and I don't want to put out crap either. Like this video I'm putting out, like it's actually a good video. It's 15 minutes long, 14 minutes long, but it's like boom, boom, boom. But it's like a heart attack all the time. I call that like when you're watching a video, you can watch the people leaving rate, whatever that's called. Can't remember. And like, you don't want to see tons of people leaving at certain times. So I always feel like I call it a heart attack. I always want my video to constantly have like another thing that's like, oh my God, this is amazing, as opposed to just like one.
See, I've been so stubborn about that with my own personal stuff. I mean, largely because the whole reason I started making videos is because I had to. Like, I was ordered by a therapist to like, dude, you got to like let people in and get out of your own head. And so that's when I made the channel, and part of it was just me just setting the camera up and I just sort of let it run. And so the core people who sort of follow my stuff like that sort of 2 hour or hour long crazy.
Don't
boring,
change that. Don't change that.
That's what I struggle with every day is, well, theoretically, my average watch time is like 6.5 minutes or something like that. And you can see exactly when they're falling off. And I just keep fighting it. So I feel like I'm Steve Jobs, like refusing to conform. We'll see if I'm right or wrong.
The shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
The shiny object syndrome is a terrible thing, and I fall victim to it a lot. And I have to, so the shiny object for you in this particular conversation, I feel like we're having an actual conversation and not a podcast interview, which is what's hopefully going to make this good.
Yeah.
Is just because I'm doing something that is successful or seems to be successful, don't change what you're doing because you have something like, why would you you know what I'm saying? It also sounds weird that I'm giving you advice to not. I'm giving this in a loving way, if you get what I'm saying. If it's working for you, which it is,
Right.
because we're having this conversation and you're like, well, no, like just keep doing it.
Yep.
There's a lot of people that probably dig it.
Yep.
I mean, you're not going for masses. I'm not going for masses. I'm going for the few that are like freaking totally crazy. Like I go to a car show and they freak out.
Right.
That makes me feel like it almost brings like tears. Like it's like amazing. It's like, oh, this is great. I wash a car, dude.
Right.
I wash cars.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like I'm trying to be as grounded as possible. Like I'm just having fun. It's cool. And so when people come up, hey, we'll go to SEMA. Like walk around in SEMA. With, it's freaking crazy. Oh, dude, get a selfie and the whole thing. I'm like, oh man, I turn like if you and I walk and that happens, I'll turn to be like, it was freaking awesome, right? You know what I mean? Like I'm not just like, oh, take a picture with me. I'm super. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's just you got to have a little bit of stick to your guns. Don't go after the shiny things and enjoy what you're doing. And if it's therapeutic, by the way, God bless you. You should keep doing it.
Yeah, that I completely agree, and that's. I think that part of what I admire so much about your brand and AMMONYC is that we're all just making this up anyway, and so why not make up your own thing? I mean, who's going to stop you? Like, no one's going to stop you other than yourself. Right. So just
I think your values are very important, not yours, but one's values.
Right. Yeah.
If you can do everything, I just think if you keep it honorable and you keep win-win situation, basically an equitable mutual relationship, and I mean that with the people watching right now.
Yep.
And don't violate those things, and don't treat people a certain way, and don't misogyny, all these crazy things that you will steer clear of. But if you just define what your brand is as a detailer or a person or whatever, and just stick to that. Don't like. Yep. And then if people like you, great. If they don't, that's fine. Like not everyone's gonna like you. Like when I first went on YouTube, holy crap! I almost had to go to therapy. Look at his hair. His hair is spiky. Look at his arm span. I'm like a giraffe. You know what I mean? Like so, I just got killed. And then the funny part is I went to Matt and I was like, and this is when he was in LA. He still lives in LA, but in this other house. And I would go out to him and we would do some films because in the beginning he would help me film because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I was like, dude, seriously, how do you not want to shoot yourself in the face every 5 minutes? Dingleberry. And he helped me understand all that stuff. And the interesting thing is, and it's good and bad, he doesn't read or respond to comments. And I understand. Like, I really understand why he does that. So I don't necessarily do that all the time. Granted, I thumb through, maybe when I'm in break zone in the bathroom, whatever, I'll thumb through and be like, okay, let me get the gist of what's going on here. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe there's something stupid. Maybe there's something I can pick up and be better next time. But I try. I don't want to say I try. I'm better than that. Like, I don't respond to things, and I will delete the person. If they say my hair is goofy or whatever, that's fine. Right. But if they say something that's ridiculous and they're like rude to somebody else, I don't even think about it. I just ban them from the channel because I don't care. Like, just be nice. Like washing cars, dude. People are like dying and doing like important stuff. Like,
I struggle with that sort of sense of responsibility too. There's a young audience that sort of follows me and following all this fancy cars and crap that I'm buying and building a garage, and so I feel this sense of responsibility to it at times to teach them, and sometimes you just have to let it go. You just
do the best you can. Just be yourself and all the things that you say. Right. YouTube. There is not one YouTube video in the history of YouTube. I'm taking liberty on this. That has ever gotten all positive reviews.
Right. Yeah.
It's not. It's just not. Even the kittens.
Yeah.
That's a stupid kitten. You're like, what are you talking about? It's a kitten. Like, what is the matter with you?
Should have been longer. Should have been shorter. You're right. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
It's like, okay, fine, dude, whatever. But overall, my comments are like just leaps and bounds better than the average, and I couldn't be happy. So,
Brian, you got any sort of super?
Well, what's interesting to me is this theme comes up all the time, and it comes up, when I've done interviews with other successful entrepreneurs too. It's like the young person who looks at you and sees what you do. What they may miss is the fact that you've put in the 10,000 hours, and not just the 10,000 hours at one thing, but at multiple things. 10,000 hours in producing content and in detailing and in creating product. And
to further your point, that to kind of encapsulate your point into what I see all the time is, how do I detail? This makes me go like, how do I detail Ferraris like you? And I'm like, I was like, I don't, how am I supposed to answer that question? I said, you go up, and you get to a certain thing, and then people who own Ferraris will hire you. And I said, here's the interesting part. I'm looking you dead in the camera, dead in the camera eye. I don't care if it's a Ferrari or a Pagani. I genuinely don't. I think they're wonderful. And I don't care if it's a Honda Civic. I like the car that has a story. And more importantly, as corny as that sounds, I'm focusing on the client. When you're trying to create a successful job, this is for your detailers out there. I had this conversation with one of my guys this morning. There's kind of two things that I find very fascinating when you're trying to go from zero to hero. And the two factors in doing that are learning, let's call it, for argument's sake, just for round numbers, the top 10 things that detailers do wrong, or brokers do wrong, or mechanics do wrong, whatever it is that your field is. What's the thing that like you gain in 30 years of experience? You hit those, you cover those just by default. How do you capture those and then teach them to somebody young so that they get that experience? They're never going to get the full experience of the 30 years. There's just no way around that. I'm sorry. But you can compress a lot of learning by working on those things that you practice. Okay, you're like, what the hell does this mean? The second part that I think makes a great detailer is not being necessarily the best detailer or having the best technique. It's picking the best car and picking the best client. That's what makes you the best, I'm using it now, detailer. I'm going to explain that. Let that marinate for a second. To me, when I first got that, I was like, holy crap, that makes total sense. So you could be the best detailer in the world. You got the most skills. But if you get a car, if you accept a job, let me be very specific. If you take in this car, I don't care if it's a Civic, a Honda, whatever the hell it is, it's a bicycle, I don't care. You take this in and you look at that and those 10 rules that we talked about, like the things that you make a mistake on, if you don't stick to those, you look at it and you're like, oh, I can fix that. And it goes wrong. Okay, now you're a bad detailer. You may not be a bad detailer. You picked a bad car. Okay, another example. Somebody comes in and you have an easy car. You're like, man, I can make money on this car. This is good. This is in my wheelhouse. But you look at the customer, and the customer, you can kind of size him up.
He's
and you say,
right. It won't be happy.
He's not going to be happy. Right. He's not going to be happy. Guess what? You're not the best detailer in the world.
Right.
You may be. His perception is you're not the best detailer in the world. So the combination of those two, and I gave it very briefly, and there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Maybe I didn't describe it as well as I should have. But those 10 factors, 100 factors, whatever they are, of something that someone with, let's say, my amount of experience or Kevin Brown or whatever, has gone through by osmosis, meaning just it happens over the course of 30 years, and you learn that. If we can somehow isolate those, compact those, and jam them into a young person who's just starting out and have gone through that exercise of those experiences, if he could put those in the back of his Rolodex brain, then the combination, like I said, of picking the car plus the person, you can go right up in your skills of detailing and then become profitable and a great detailer. I'm practicing this because I'm sure I'm going to have to do this in the future for like a seminar or whatever. Did that come across right? Does that make sense? Or did I lose somebody?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it sounds to me like progress keeps you up at night and has kept you up at night for a long period of time. Like it's incremental, but every step is, because like the idea of being able to assess a customer, that's not something, even that's a skill. Like it's not something that you wake up one day and you're like, oh, hey, I can read people and I can understand it's having had the bad experiences. It's like, crap, that was not good. That did not end well. And so I'm not going to do that again next time.
Right. It's a little bit of a nuance that I find so attractive, that it's not necessarily, hey, I have to know what the best polish is. I'm speaking to a lot of detailers. I have to know what the best polish is and, how to use the technique the right way and the machine the right way and all that other stuff. Yes, that is important. But there's like 50 other factors that go into you being the best detailer. And I think if I can just dribble out a little bit of that nugget, and I think sometimes people go like, oh crap, I think I understand what he's talking about. And it's like, focus on the polishing, but there's 50 other things you need to focus on.
Well,
so,
ultimately what business is just an excuse to be in relationship with people. And so if you have a relationship with that person, before you even touch the car, you have a much better chance of success. You know that car story, you know that person's story, they know your story. They're going to be much more inclined to trust you to do what you are an expert in, because you have the relationship. And so developing that relationship, a lot of times I find, in wealth management, ensures future success, because I don't know what kind of returns I'm going to get for somebody. I don't know how that paint is going to react. I may have a good idea of how the portfolio is going to respond to some sort of input-output from experience. But the more important thing is the relationship I have with the person. How is, my relationship with them is going to sort of dictate the future success.
Listen, I totally agree. And circling back, that was part of the reason why, like the weeding out your customers and becoming more successful. That's the underlying kind of meat and potatoes of that theory, because now I don't have 10 customers. I have 10 like closest friends that text message me. They just all happen to be like millionaires with tons of cars. Yeah. Which, like, that sounded really pompous, but it's actually the truth. Yeah. But you get what I'm saying?
It's the dream, right?
It's awesome. It's just amazing. So like I go see my friends and I get to go clean their cars and they pay me, and then we go drive them and make it dirty. Again, that is a little bit of a, that may take a little time to get there, but it is in fact true. So
Brian, why don't you wrap us up, because I want to be sort of
that's true.
Be aware of your time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's basically. I mean, I appreciate it. This is probably, and I've probably done 500 interviews of different sorts in this type, and this is probably my favorite one I've ever had. Oh, because I mean, you've been so willing to be authentic, and that's also when you talk about like honesty and all of that. Even I don't want to say more important than honesty, but you can be honest and still be an absolute jerk. Where you're an authentic human being, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, awesome. Appreciate it. Can't wait to meet you out at SEMA.
Yeah, I'll see you soon. Let's catch up when you get there, by the way. Cool. And then I know we're talking. Yeah, whatever. People still want to hear our conversation. I'll shoot you an email in the next day or so, because I'm going to edit today, like I said.
Cool.
And then maybe you can fire out that video so people can see the graph.
Yep. Awesome.
You guys are awesome.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much. Right. Appreciate it.
What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor.